At my daughter Mia's funeral, there wasn't a single stain on my black dress. I hadn't yet found the courage to let my tears fall. The makeup I had put on with my trembling hands at 5 in the morning was still intact. Just like me, from the outside, I was still standing. But inside, something had already broken. Forever, I was alone in the quiet bathroom of the funeral home. My fingers were frozen. I was gripping the edge of the marble sink, trying to stay upright. Then a message came through, and my phone trembled in my hand. When I looked at the screen, my heart stopped for a second. The message from Daniel. I read it 3 times, unable to believe it. "We're celebrating new beginnings. You bury her. You're already used to being helpless." There was a photo below the message. Daniel, his brother Leon, and a blonde woman, holding champagne glasses, posing in a first-class airplane seat. The time on the photo didn't escape my notice. 10:24, exactly when Mia's coffin was being closed. My throat tightened. I leaned against the sink, my knees ready to give out. Even breathing was hard. 3 weeks ago, when Mia took her last breath, Daniel wasn't around. He said he had to handle something for work, something to secure our future. I had told Mia, "Daddy loves you so much, but he has to work." But now I learned the only thing Daniel had been working on was an escape plan. Those days replayed one by one in my mind, the thousands of euros I spent to ease Mia's pain. The second mortgage I took on our house to cover treatments that the insurance didn't pay for. I did all those calculations, I made those payments. Daniel had said he was emotionally too sensitive for this, but I was the one who fought, down to the last penny in the bank. The door knocked. I heard the funeral director's voice. "Elena, are you all right?" "I'll be out in a minute," I replied, keeping my voice steady. I looked at myself in the mirror. In front of me was a woman who had carried the weight of a 15-year marriage alone. A woman who had stayed by her daughter's side all night, gone to work during the day, paid the bills, waited in the pharmacy line. And that woman knew very well that nothing would ever be the same again. I put my phone in my bag and straightened my shoulders. As I walked out, for the first time, I saw myself clearly. How alone I had been left, how underestimated I had been, and how much anger had built up inside me. This anger was unfamiliar, but it gave me strength. It was like a kind of clarity. The fog had lifted. Now it was my turn to take action. Mia's teacher, old friends, co-workers, they were all there. Not a single person from Daniel's family showed up. I wasn't surprised anymore. It all made sense. As they lowered the coffin into the ground, they expected me to collapse. But I stood firm. With every handful of dirt, my resolve became clearer. The man who tried to bury me would disappear in the hole he had dug for me. I didn't let anyone know anything during the condolences. I smiled quietly, nodded. When everyone left, my sister Leah hugged me. "Stay with us tonight," she said. "I just have some work to do," I replied. That night, for the first time, I entered Mia's room. Everything was just as she had left it. Her toy elephant was still waiting by her pillow. The pictures on the walls, the puppets on the shelf. This room that once echoed with laughter was now empty. There was a photo frame on the nightstand. The 3 of us at the beach, Mia's hair blowing in the wind. Daniel was smiling at the camera. In that moment, I thought, was he even with Melissa back then? While Mia built a sandcastle, was he thinking of another woman? I sat at the edge of the bed. I still hadn't shed a tear. The pain was deep. But a decision had formed inside me. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about survival. Daniel hadn't just abandoned my daughter. He had abandoned me too. But he wouldn't destroy me. A message lit up my phone screen. The number was unfamiliar. "I'm so sorry. Daniel wanted to leave you alone, but if you need anything, I'm here. By the way, I'm Melissa." For a few seconds, I forgot to breathe. So she had no idea either. Worse, Daniel had deceived everyone. Still, I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my banking app. Numbers were my refuge. My work was accounting. And there was one thing Daniel never understood. I was the backbone of our financial system. I owned everything. The cards, the loans, the house, even that fancy car was in my name, because his credit was still terrible. That night, I quietly closed all the accounts, changed the passwords, redirected automatic payments to my personal account. I left only 13 euros in our joint account, €1 for every unanswered call. And then I lay down on Mia's bed. I pressed her toy to my chest, and for the first time that night, I cried quietly. Not just for her, for everything. I woke up before dawn. I was still in Mia's bed. My daughter's toy was tightly clutched in my arms. For a moment, I thought everything was just a nightmare. But then, the reality hit me, heavy and undeniable. Mia was no longer in this house, and Daniel, taking advantage of her absence, had stepped into another life. But I was still here, standing, tall. On my phone screen, there were a series of international calls and messages. Daniel's plan was to enjoy an endless vacation in Bali. My plan, however, was to turn his vacation into a nightmare. I put my phone on silent. This morning, I was going to put my battle plan into action. I grabbed my coffee and sat at the dining table. For 15 years, I had been handling both the household and Daniel's business accounts. He was a creative spirit. Numbers bored him, but they didn't bore me. I knew that numbers don't lie. People can deceive you, but balances screamed the truth. I opened my laptop and sorted through my files. Every invoice, every receipt, every loan application I had kept over the years was there. Daniel's name appeared on most of them as only an authorized user. The credit cards were in my name. We had bought his car under my name, because even back then, his credit score was low. I was the one paying the mortgage alone. The hospital bills, Mia's special diet, emergency medications, I had paid for it all. And he, taking advantage of this storm, had escaped. For hours, I closed accounts one by one. I froze the joint cards, set new passwords, disabled the credit lines. I slowly and strategically dismantled Daniel's access to the banking system. Not fast, but conscious and tactical. Every step raised the walls higher. I was no longer a fragile wife. I was a woman building a fortress to protect my life. This was a reckoning. But not just with him, with myself as well. At that moment, a notebook caught my attention on Mia's nightstand. A small, worn notebook with curled corners. I reached for it, curious. On the cover, in child's handwriting, it said, "Mia's super secret diary. No parents allowed." I paused for a moment. This was her world. But she wasn't here anymore, and the only remaining voice, could it be on these pages? The first page was from her 6th birthday. Today, Dad was supposed to take me to the aquarium, but he got busy. Mom made purple cream cake, and then we went to watch the dolphins. Dad said he'd come next time. I wish next time was now. My throat tightened. It was so simple, so real. I flipped through the pages. Simple observations. The most annoying girl in class, the best dinosaur, always the Triceratops, plans to marry Captain America when she grew up. And then, the dark day had come. The doctor told my mom and dad I was very sick. Mom cried in the bathroom but tried to smile at me. Dad was on the phone. I'm scared, but I heard Mom say I was her bravest girl. I need to be brave for her. I couldn't hold back my tears. I remembered that night when I had to fix my smile in the mirror with soap. Mia had understood everything. A few pages later, something else fell from the notebook. A folded picture. 3 stick figures, one with blonde hair, one tall, one short. It said, "When I grow up, I'll help people with money so they don't struggle, just like Mom." In that moment, something inside me broke, and at the same time, something else awoke. This was no longer just about revenge. This was a mission Mia had left me. She had seen my fight. She had seen not only my tears, but my strength too. In one of the next entries, she mentioned Daniel's name. Today, Dad came. He brought a new game. He stayed for 2 hours. When Mom went to get coffee, he told me a secret. Sometimes, when grown-ups get very sad, they do bad things, but that doesn't mean they're really bad. That's why he doesn't come often. I told him I understood. My anger flared up again. He had even used Mia to forgive his own guilt. He made a 7-year-old defend him. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every line echoed in my mind. There was one last page. "Mom, if you're reading this, I'm not with you anymore. I'm so sorry. I did the best I could. But don't be sad. Do you remember? One day, we were going to open a bakery. With a blue door. We were going to call it Mia's Dream. We'd make really creamy cupcakes. You should still do that. Name one after me. Make it full of sprinkles. I was shaken. This wasn't a goodbye. It was a legacy. And Mom, I know, Melissa, it's okay. Some people aren't strong. When they're scared, they run away. But you didn't run. You're the strongest. I pressed the notebook to my chest. In that moment, the thought of revenge seemed so small. What Daniel had done to me was still unforgivable, yes, but I was now Mia's mother. And I had to become the woman she believed in. That morning, I opened a file. I wrote on it, Mia's wishes. The first item, Blue Door Bakery. The second item, live with strength, not anger. After Mia's diary, nights began to feel different. My sleep was shorter, the mornings heavier, but strangely, clearer. It was as if the fog in my mind was slowly lifting. For the first time in days, I opened the curtains. Light gently streamed into Mia's room. As dust particles danced in the air, I could almost feel her presence. The tears came again, but they didn't paralyze me anymore. They just slid down my cheeks like passing memories. My phone screen displayed 43 missed calls, most from international numbers. The messages were filled with pleas. Daniel's cards still weren't working. They couldn't pay the hotel bill. They had contacted the embassy. Melissa's hair was a mess, and Leon was struggling to keep it together. The funny thing was, they were still trying to present it all as a misunderstanding. And then that day came. The doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. There were 3 tired faces, Daniel, Leon, and Melissa. Their faces were sunburned, their clothes wrinkled, their luxurious lives were behind them, and they were now filled with desperation. For a moment, I didn't want to open the door, but then Mia's voice echoed in my ear. Live with strength, not with anger. I took a deep breath. I opened the door, but I didn't let them come in. We want to talk, Daniel said. You want to talk. I don't need to, I corrected him. Leon jumped in as he always did, trying to calm things down. Scarlett, please. The hotel is holding us hostage. They didn't even let us keep our passports. The embassy barely helped. We bought the plane tickets with borrowed money. We're exhausted. He looked into my eyes, but I just shook my head. That must be hard, I said, but it's not harder than organizing the funeral alone. Melissa stayed silent. Her hair was tied up, but her trembling hands and red eyelids told the story of sleepless nights. I gave them exactly 30 minutes. When they came inside, Daniel instinctively headed for the bar. I blocked his way. This is no longer your home, I said. He stepped back. I allowed them to sit, but I stayed standing. Just to remind them who held the power in this conversation. Daniel started. You ruined me. I didn't deserve this. I just looked at him. No, I said calmly. I only uncovered the truths you've been hiding for years. You did this to yourself. Melissa interrupted. Daniel told me you were separating, that you were about to divorce. He said being with him wasn't wrong. He said Mia was getting better. Not a single muscle in my face moved. When did this separation happen? Was it during chemotherapy? Or right after the bone marrow transplant? Melissa turned pale. Didn't you know Mia was still sick? Leon turned to Melissa, disappointed. You told me everything's under control. What's going on, Daniel? I broke the silence. I grabbed Mia's diary. I placed it on the coffee table. I read this, I said. Daniel turned his head away. These were her last words. I whispered. She wrote what you promised her. You told her I'll take care of Mom. What did you do after that? Blue seas, other women, and a conscience that didn't even show up for her funeral. Daniel started to cry. But those tears no longer affected me. Because Mia had seen everything, heard everything, and understood it all in those pages. In the hospital rooms, she had described how thin the walls were. She knew Melissa's name, your escape plans. But she hadn't felt anger toward you. Some people aren't strong, she had written. But I was strong, and I owed that to her. I pulled out the file, the documents I had prepared with my lawyer. You'll transfer all your rights to the house. You won't make any claims about the furniture. You'll be responsible for all your personal debts. I'll open a new account for you. I'll deposit only 5,000 euros, enough for temporary accommodation and basic needs. 5,000? Is this what 15 years are worth? Leon shook his head. Be grateful, he said. He could have taken everything. I continued. You'll donate Mia's education fund to cancer charities. And attending weekly grief counseling is mandatory. Not a financial obligation, but a humanitarian one. Daniel protested. Counseling? I don't need that. You're wrong, I said. Mia believed you loved her. Maybe you really did. Then at least respect her last wish. Melissa lowered her head. I didn't know, she said. I truly didn't know. And I didn't know this relationship would lead to such destruction. She grabbed her bag, her eyes filled with tears. Scarlett, I'm so sorry for your loss. You didn't deserve this. She left without slamming the door. Leon looked back at her, then turned to Daniel. You even fooled us, he said. His voice carried not only anger but also disappointment. Daniel was still sitting there, in front of the papers. He reached out, grabbed the pen, and signed, without a word. The only sound in the silence was the rustling of the paper. Then he lifted his head. I loved her. I loved you, too. In my own way. I didn't respond. I looked into his eyes and only said one sentence. I know. You thought you did. Goodbye, Daniel. When the door closed, there was no feeling of victory inside me. What victory was this? Mia wouldn't come back. But there was something. Silence. Clean, clear silence. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had become the woman worthy of her memory. And then I added a new item to Mia's list. Third item. Move forward with grace, not just with anger. After Daniel and the others left, the house fell into silence. But this silence wasn't unsettling for the first time. I was still walking around the walls where Mia's laughter had once echoed, but now I was focusing not on her absence, but on the light she had left behind for me. That night, I didn't cook. I just had a cup of tea and sat at the little table in the corner of the kitchen. For days, I hadn't been able to lift my head from papers, documents, and accounts. For the first time, I was sitting without thinking about anything. My body was tired, but there was something else in my soul, something that resembled peace. Then my eyes landed on Mia's diary. It was sitting on the bookshelf in the living room. I slowly picked it up, not needing to read it again, just loving the cover with my fingers. And then that page. Do you remember? One day, we were going to open a bakery, a blue door. It was going to be called Mia's Dream. We were going to make really creamy cupcakes. Name one after me. A thought slipped into my mind from the corner of my consciousness. Like a dream, but more concrete than a dream. The next morning, without saying anything, I went to my sister Leah's house. I needed to drop off Mia's toy boxes and some clothes. When she opened the door, her eyes immediately filled with tears. I'm just leaving these, and then I'll go, I said. But I didn't leave. We sat down and had coffee together. I told her about Mia's diary and the idea of the Blue Door Bakery. The name is even ready, I said. Mia's Dream. Leah paused for a moment. Then, the familiar spark in her eyes appeared. Are you serious? I've never been more serious. A few days later, I applied to the City Hall. Business license, health certificates, location research. Everything seemed like a mountain on its own. But I had grown up with numbers. I knew the climb. I knew how to scale it. The first step was to rent a small office. A space where I could continue my accounting work and also plan for Mia's dream. I had the walls painted light blue. It was Mia's favorite color. I didn't put a waiting seat. Instead, I set up a small children's corner. Toys, books, colorful pencils. Sometimes for children who weren't in this world. Sometimes for those who remained. This office wasn't just going to be a bakery. It was also going to be a map for other mothers. Because I wasn't alone. There were other mothers like me who had lost their children, who were drowning in debt, who were becoming isolated. I met Diane during this time. I had met her at a grief support group I attended after my loss. Her son Tyler had passed away just 3 months after Mia. Diane couldn't handle her bills. The invoices, insurance documents, official procedures. As I helped her, I realized that this wasn't just kindness, it was a need. Someone like me had to step forward for these people. Someone who was friends with numbers, but also saw the person behind those numbers. Mia's Dream Bakery wouldn't open in one day. But I had taken the first step. I hung a small sign on my office door. Balance Books and Bridges, financial counseling for families in crisis. The first visitors were few, but as my story spread, they multiplied. I helped each of them individually. Debt restructuring, payment plans, insurance support. And sometimes, I just let them cry in silence. When I returned home, the house had started to change as well. The furniture, decorated in Daniel's flashy taste, was gone. In its place were simpler, warmer pieces. I framed Mia's drawings and hung them on the walls. They meant more than diplomas ever could. I turned the corner of the living room into a reading nook. Fluffy cushions, blankets, soft light. Just like Mia's room. The hardest part was Mia's room. I had kept it closed for months. I couldn't even bring myself to open the curtains. But now, the time had come. One afternoon, I gathered my courage and opened the door. When the light poured into the room, even the dust settled on the furniture, turned into a memory. The shelves, the books, the toys, everything was in its place. I left half of the room just as it was. Mia's world as it was. The other half, I turned into a space for me. I put notebooks, paints, and brushes on the table. I started painting. Maybe I wasn't good at it, but it wasn't about the art. It was about adding color to Mia's memory, talking to her, living with her. And then one day, the doorbell rang. A message appeared on my phone from Leah. "I just wanted to check on you today. I love you." There was another notification below it. Sender, Leon. The message had just a few lines. "Daniel has started counseling sessions. He wants to move to Colorado. By the way, I saw your office sign. Great idea. Emma would be proud of you." At that moment, my eyes filled with tears. Not anger, not resentment. This was something else, a feeling I could barely name, but it was light, deep, peace. A voice inside me whispered, "You didn't take revenge, Elena. You took your life back." I thought I would wake up alone on the first anniversary of Mia's death. The previous days had been under control, my office work, meetings with clients, invoice arrangements. But that morning, there was a quiet emptiness inside me. The sky was gray. When I opened the curtains, the house was silent. But this silence didn't scare me this time. I wasn't unprepared. I knew this day would come. And it was time to put into action a decision I had made months ago. The bakery Mia had dreamed of. Today it would come true, right at the head of her grave. I loaded my car with the baking supplies I had prepared in advance, a camping stove, a portable table, and some cupcake decorations. I had even printed labels with Mia's name on them. Mia's dream. Too creamy, too heartfelt, they read. It sounded childish, but it was exactly what Mia would have wanted. When I arrived at the cemetery, I wasn't handed a flower, but a mixing bowl. While other gravestones had classic flower bouquets, tears, and silence, I was setting up a packet of flour, a jar of sugar, and pastel-colored cupcake molds on a stone table. Of course, everyone who arrived was a little surprised. Diane was the first to arrive. She approached with a bag in hand and a curious look on her face. "Elena, are you sure about this?" I smiled. Mia would have wanted it this way. Today, I want to celebrate her dream, not just the pain. Then, other parents from the support group arrived, each bringing something. Some brought candy, some brought spatulas, some just came to sit in silence. We had all lost our children. But that day, because of them, life was being reshaped. I lit the camping stove. As I prepared the first cake batter, my hands trembled. Diane helped. The air was cold, but our hearts were warm. As the hours passed, the table filled up. Colorful cupcakes, some puffed up, some crooked, but all made with love. We placed Mia's favorite things on top: purple creams, rose-shaped candies, rainbow-colored decorations. In the end, everyone quietly formed a circle. Each person took a cupcake. Diane made eye contact with me. I nodded. "To Mia," I said. "To that little big girl who taught us life, loss, love, and hope." The cupcakes were raised in the air. Some bit into them, crying, others laughing. I closed my eyes for a moment. I thought of Mia. The dream shop with the blue door. The cakes lined up on the shelves. the dose kneaded with joy in the back room. And I, as her mother, was taking the first step to turn that dream into reality here, at the head of the soil. In that moment, I understood. Grief isn't just tears. Sometimes a laugh mixed with hope, sometimes whipped cream, is just as healing. That day, there, at the head of a gravestone, life and death, loss and love, intertwined. As the sun set, everyone quietly began to leave. It was just me, the camping stove, and a few leftover cupcakes. The last to leave was Diane. "You know," she said, her eyes sparkling, "this wasn't just healing for Mia, it was healing for all of us." I lowered my head. I learned today, too. Grief isn't just black. Sometimes it can be pink cream, too. On my way home, there was a deep calm inside me. Mia's presence felt like she was with me, in the wind. It was as if she was sitting in the back seat, silently saying, "The cupcakes turned out great, Mom." That night I went to my office. As I was reviewing the new client files, I got a message from my lawyer. Daniel has signed the final divorce papers. He didn't request any changes. The process is complete. I stared at the screen for a moment. The end of a 15-year marriage was sealed with a few signatures, but I had already carried the weight of this marriage for years. Now I had simply let go. I wrote just 2 words to my lawyer. "Completed. Thank you." When I got home, I opened a bottle of wine. I sat on the bench in the garden, under the tree where Mia used to play, under the stars, alone but not feeling incomplete. Now I knew. The opposite of grief isn't happiness, it's purpose. And I had found my purpose. By following Mia's path, living her dream, and by being reborn through it. As the months went by, my life began to find its own rhythm. In the mornings, I no longer woke up to Mia's screams, but to the echo of her dream inside me. My office was filling up. Other mothers, other families. I was drawing a path for those lost among papers, for those stranded at the edges of the healthcare system. They may not have known Mia, but her mark was in every file. As I helped them, I was passing on the lessons my daughter had taught me. The house, too, was now entirely mine. Not a single color Daniel had chosen remained on the walls. Pastel tones, book corners, floral curtains, and, of course, Mia's painting of the sun. It was right in the middle of the living room. Every time our eyes met, I could feel her gaze, telling me, "You're strong, Mom." Mia's room was no longer a place of mourning, but a place of inspiration. Half of the shelves still held her things. Her toy elephant, her small stone collection, the notebook decorated with hospital wristbands. The other half was mine. Baking books, brushes and paint pens, sample recipes. Something was being born there. Quiet but determined preparation. And finally, at the beginning of June, I received the permit from the municipality. Approval had come through for the Blue Door shop. The shop was tucked away on a small street. The rent was more affordable than in the center. But for me, it was the perfect spot. Because right on the corner was an elementary school. A place filled with children's voices every morning. The renovation process was challenging but enjoyable. I painted the first wall myself. I decided on the door color without thinking. Sea blue. Exactly the tone Mia used most often in her color set. I furnished the shop with old-style tables and chairs. I decorated the shelves with Mia's toys. On the counter, a sign was displayed in large letters. Mia's Traum. Zu viel Zuckerguss, genau richtig. Mia's dream. Too much frosting, just right. Opening day was a sunny Saturday. People began arriving early in the morning. Old colleagues, families from the support group, neighbors. They were all there. Diane was one of the first. She had brought a photo of Tyler. She silently placed it on the memory corner by the counter. I noticed something on the faces of everyone who walked in, a softness mixed with curiosity. Because this wasn't just a bakery. It was a bridge built in the midst of pain. It was that invisible point of transition between grief and life. The doorbell rang. I turned around. It was Leon. He was holding an envelope. "From the lawyer," he said. I opened the envelope. Inside was Daniel's final note. It was short and unexpectedly honest. I've fulfilled all my responsibilities in Mia's name. What remains is to learn to live life the way she did. Now I have a reason to do so. I didn't know what to write, but for the first time, I didn't feel anger toward him, but a deep emptiness. Maybe it wasn't forgiveness, but it was acceptance. And that was a kind of freedom. Leon looked inside the shop. Mia really feels like she's here, he said. Because she is, I replied. In everything. That day, at closing time, I picked up the last cupcake. It had purple frosting, rainbow sprinkles, and a little heart on top. Mia's favorite. I stepped outside. I looked up at the sky. To my sweet girl, I whispered, today, your bakery opened. And for the first time, I truly felt lighter. The opposite of grief isn't happiness. The opposite of grief is meaning. And I had brought to life every bit of meaning Mia had left for me. Behind the blue door, there were not just cupcakes. There was loss, but there was also hope, a quietly growing strength, and the most precious legacy a little girl leaves her mother, to remind her that healing too has a shape.